Welcome, everyone. I'm Janet Therese, and this is Living the Paradox, One Within Oneness. I'm an intuitive coach and energy guide here to support your spiritual journey, increasing awareness and compassion for yourself and others. Join me as we explore the ways you can live the paradox of individual consciousness, living within oneness. If you're experiencing a spiritual or psychic opening, are an empath trying to manage feeling everything, or wanting to learn how to integrate your spiritual journey into your daily life, stay tuned. You will gain tools and exciting insights on how to connect with and trust your inner guidance. Your personal journey helps lift humanity as we are all cells within the same body of consciousness. Living the Paradox starts now.
I want to welcome everyone. This is a very special edition of the show that Janet does, and I want to tell you why. This is about manifesting methods and success stories. So much of what we know in the world today comes from the power of storytelling. And often we leave that out, but not if you're Janet. Today, they're so powerful. It helps people not only relate, but Janet, it also helps people take action. You see, sometimes we get information, but we're not quite there to do anything about it. And so,
Exactly.
what have you found about stories, and especially some of the ones we're going to tell today?
Well, I think it's because we are creative energy, right? And when we hear another person's story, it's kind of like the 4-minute mile,
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden, oh, one person did it. Okay, it can be done. I can do it. But I also think about it as a writing prompt. Okay, here's a story. Okay, now go create your own. Talk amongst yourselves. And and it's fun. And I think people can relate when they hear other people's stories, especially some of these. They're very powerful. Very, very powerful. And it can be really fun too. And I think people forget that. I think they're just like, they get so focused and so worried about what are they thinking and are they thinking the wrong thing? And that's not where it's at. It's all about the feeling, getting into the feeling of it. And that can be quite a different experience. So I'd like
And
to share some of these
yeah,
stories.
let's do it, because you and I work with people and we never really give out anybody's real name, and we try to
Mhm.
keep things really in a way that we can share a message powerfully. Yesterday I was interviewed by one of our other hosts, and it was fascinating afterwards to listen back of the stories I told,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not answering how did you get here like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
I never planned that to be like that. However,
Right.
I did know we were going to do this show. So I think on the subconscious level or the unconscious level, I got it. But
Funny thing.
let's, funny thing, but let's talk about this. From where
Yeah.
you sit, I would love for you to share some of your experiences and what you've been able to help people with through these stories.
I'd love to. I'd love to. Now, these are real stories from my clients through our work together, but I'm going to change their names just to keep it anonymous. This first story I want to tell you about someone I'll call Ashley. She this is what she practiced in wanting to manifest a new home. She started with meditation, and she is quite an empath, which means she's clairsentient. She feels the feelings of others. She's sensitive to the energy of others, right? Now, I want to speak to empaths for just a moment, because manifesting for you can be a little fraught if you're muddled and puddled with everyone else. So it's really important to make sure that you're clear, disentangled, so that you can manifest successfully. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But Ashley, she used my back to center meditation to prepare her energy body, get her in the right frame of mind, and get her aligned with her higher self. So getting her connected into her core vertically. And then after preparing her field, while she's still in meditation, she settled into how she would feel in the new home, which would bring up all this imagery for her, this feeling of being in an open field with all the beautiful trees and the feel of the breeze on her skin, and especially being at peace. This was really important to her. She wanted to feel at peace in her home, and she wasn't quite feeling that in her current home at the time. So she'd bring up images of drinking tea or coffee with that same feeling. And she carried those feelings with her as she moved through her day. So what's important here too is that she let go of the how. She let go of how it would happen and just stayed in the feeling of the end result, right? Because you don't want to get too in the weeds. We could trip ourselves up and just throw a monkey wrench into the whole process. So she just knew in her bones that it would happen. And she just stayed in that feeling, stayed in the feeling of the end result. So one day she got this text randomly. Apparently, that's how it's happening now when people are buying houses, right?
It really
There's a home
is.
for you. Go look at it. And she wasn't sure that this was exactly the home that she wanted, but she went and took a look at it anyway. But when she went onto the property, she felt that same peacefulness that she had felt in her heart during the meditations. And that's how she knew that this was the one, because the feelings matched. It matched the feeling that she was imagining, you know? And her dog ran in the house like it was his. So he was probably manifesting the yard. So remember to enlist your pets in the process of manifesting.
But part of what you're sharing is something we don't talk about enough.
Mhm.
We went through a period in, let's call it the evolution of New Thought, and that goes back a whole century, really.
Yes.
But we
Yes.
went through the idea about thought, and then we went through the idea about emotions.
Mhm.
But what you're talking about is a place of knowing, which is the combination of both.
Yes.
It is when you combine thought and emotions together in that place of stillness. I call it knowing. And I think that's what you just described,
Yes.
working with someone to help them get to that place where whatever the information that is to get to them is unclouded. It's not clouded by
Yes.
fear, right?
Yes.
Am I making sense to that? Because
Totally.
that's the only
Yes.
way.
But you can't, if you're in fear, you're not in the present moment. If you're in fear, you're thinking about the future. You're afraid about the ramifications of something that happened in the past. You're just you're not in the present moment. So when you can get yourself aligned fully vertically in the present moment and calm everything down, step back behind the story, step into who you really are, connected in with your higher self, with the however you define God, that's when creation happens, because it's that intersect between the timeline and your vertical connection.
Yeah.
And in that present moment, that's where it is. That's where it happens.
And this is part of what we've talked about before, but it's also what you do. It's, understanding the importance of manifesting as an empath.
Yes.
So often you say the word empath, and boy, it's like rotten tomatoes come at you some days.
I
But
know.
that's because we
I
don't
know. Sorry.
understand
I'm
it.
sorry. I know.
But
Let,
look at
let
the
me go there for a
power.
minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Remember, it's the feeling that creates the frequency, right? You can think all day long, but if your feeling's not there, if your feeling isn't aligned with what you're thinking or what you know to be true, then you're going to be manifesting the feeling of whatever is underneath, whatever the thing that you actually don't want, right? So empaths are clairsentient. They feel, not only do they feel deeply and have a lot of empathy, but they feel the feelings of others. And I work with a lot of empaths and really have discovered what can help them stay sovereign, stay connected and contained and connected to their core, and also keep that skill, which is kind of handy, of feeling what's going on around them. And
Yeah.
that's not, but if you're trying to manifest from that place, you have to get clear and sovereign, and you have to have a grounded sense of self so you can discern where the feelings are coming from and you can clear them if they're not your own.
Yeah.
They come in handy, but you don't want them to take you over. You don't want them to grab you and pull
Hmm.
you down the rabbit hole, right?
But that brings me back to something I learned the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
Not understanding that there are tools to help us. And you've
Right.
created such a thing. You see, a lot of times we try to will our way to do
Mm.
things, right?
Oh yeah,
But
never
we
works.
don't realize
Just saying, never
it's
works.
so hard. I don't even want to have that show today about that. But there
Right.
are other ways to do it, and you've created ways to do that. You've created a meditation that enables people. How often do you hear, Janet? I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start, but let's give
Right.
people a place to start right now.
Yeah. Okay. It's on my Spotify channel, but you can access it through my website. It's called the Back to Center meditation. And seriously, it's 6 minutes long. It's something you have time for. You can use it any time of the day. And I call it a meditation, but it's actually a precursor to meditation because I like going into a mindfulness place, just focusing on the breath. But what you can do is after you prepare your field in this meditation, it helps you get grounded. It helps you get back to your core. It helps you clear out and create a clear container, if you will, energetic container. Then you can just slide right into that feeling of whatever it is that you're trying to experience in your life, that you're wanting to experience in your life. And remember to, you're not going into the future. You're bringing that feeling into the present. Your mind doesn't know the difference between a memory, the feelings that happen from memory, or the feelings that happen in the future that you're thinking about. Worry is a good one. Worry is always about the future, right?
Yeah.
But if you bring that feeling of what you want into the present moment, you're going to carry that into the future and your experience is going to reflect that, right? Because our
Yeah.
experiences always reflect what's going on. Whatever you're experiencing today is a result of what you felt yesterday, thought about yesterday, which creates all those feelings. So, yeah, really important as an empath because those feelings are very powerful. And if they're feeling everybody else's feelings, it's going to just get in the way.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to talk about with you is that, sometimes we don't know we're in that place. We don't know it.
Right.
People have always asked me, what is the greatest thing I've learned about self-development? And I
Mhm.
said, self-development doesn't mean doing it alone. And, they
Mm.
always have to think about when I say that.
Mhm.
Self-development is about self, but self-development doesn't mean you're doing it alone. I said,
Yeah.
I've rarely in my life been able to do anything accomplished or anything heart centered, given
Yes.
my history, without working with someone in some way, form, or fashion. And I think that's the one thing we forget. Now, if you're an empath, clearly there's a lot to get through. But
Yeah.
even with a lot of tragedy in life, I mean, you've worked with people that have had this.
Yes.
How have you helped them?
Well, this next story is actually about repairing and rebuilding after a tremendous amount of loss and tragedy. I will call them Bob and Sue. They dealt with a lot of tragedy. They lost their adult son. Uh, because of that and the grief spin that they were in, they lost their jobs, both of them, because that grief was just so overwhelming. And only those who've lost a child, unfortunately, can relate to that level of grief. And they almost lost their home during the recession. It was really a difficult time, but they both set their intention to heal and move forward. So after putting some of these practices to work, uh, things turned around for them and they started a designer education private school that Sue had always dreamed about. She had a background in education. But the beauty of this story is that at a certain point, Bob wanted to take the dream to the next level. But Sue had hit her wall. Okay, that prosperity set point that we talked about in the last episode, right? And he basically told her that he has a bigger dream planned. And, instead of allowing her set point to hold it back, he held firm with his vision and his vibration. And she rose to his prosperity set point. And they now have, after they've had several expansions in a multi-million dollar business. And it was a beautiful thing to watch them go through. And of course, the business is named after the son that they lost, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful legacy. But what's super important here is for couples who are manifesting together. Um, I lost you here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
move.
Well,
Here we
one of
go.
the things that you're talking
There
about,
we
which
go.
I want to make sure that everybody understands, and I want to really get to this.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about the prosperity set point because
yeah.
that was an example of it. But I want to just tell you, this is the work that Janet does. because it's such an important pivotal energetic frequency.
Hmm.
The other day I talked about Hawkins' scale that he
Yes.
created in Power versus Force.
Oh, isn't that a wonderful book? I refer to that a lot.
I mean, I have to, I'm taking a refresher.
Yeah, it's a
But
beautiful
part
book.
of what we're talking about is there are things that we don't know about. But if we could learn these things, and this is what I'm trying to say, you've worked with these people that you're talking about.
Yes.
And a lot of times we cannot see it.
Right.
That's paradoxical, right?
Right. Yeah. It's hard to see your own stuff, right? You're red in the rainbow, it's kind of, where's my hand? It's just hard to see. It's hard to see your own stuff. And it's easy to see other people sometimes a little bit easier. So we do need each other. We do need each other in an interdependent way because that's the paradox, right? We're all one. We're all
Mhm.
here to help each other. We're all here to, as Ram Dass says, walk each other home.
Yeah.
And that set point is so important when you're doing this work. And there are ways to shift it. There are ways to shift it. And I love David Hawkins' book. He talks about he calibrated the frequencies of all the emotions. And if you could just lift yourself to the next one, because sometimes it feels like a bridge too far, then you can get to that place where you can expand that feeling of what you're comfortable allowing yourself to have. So if you hit your wall, you can actually feel that contraction in your physical body. And if you're energetically sensitive, you can feel it in your energy body too. So I work with people in my intuitive coaching sessions to help them recognize that wall and shift that wall or set point.
Yeah. I want
And
to give you a lot of credit for this because I want to just say this. It's super important for me to say the world of counseling, let me call it, and coaching.
Mhm.
I've been doing this 20 years. And when I came out of the gate, it was almost like I was committing a crime, right? With my background, your background, our expertise, our credentials. If you go back in time, I know it's a long time. I mean, the internet wasn't even really viable. But if
Right.
you go back, there was such a strangeness about doing the work you're talking about. And yet you knew it then, I knew it
Yes.
then, that
Yeah.
in order to get underneath healing, we had to do what Einstein said we needed to do. You cannot solve the problem at the level it was created. And that's what
Exactly.
intuitive coaching and counseling does. It takes
Exactly.
you out of the problem at the level it was created.
Exactly. It takes you to where everything starts, which is at the energetic. Everything starts at the energetic. But back to that, couples that have a partner that maybe aren't on the same page. Because remember 20 years ago, as I remember, we'd get the eye rolls, right? It's like lots of eye rolls happening 20 years ago, but we could talk about these things now. But I like to call this the eye roll partner. I have I have a client, I'll call her Christy. She lives in Dubai with her husband, who's the eye roll partner. And they had no intention of buying a home. That she wanted one, but they weren't looking at the time. And her husband shows her this rental, and it was so not what she wanted, right? And he was very lovingly trying to tell her that she can't have everything she wants. And she's like, oh, yeah, watch me. And it's funny because I don't know if you've had this experience when someone says that to you, it's like you could either align with it and take it in. Like, oh, you can't have everything you want. Or you can go, oh, hang on, watch me now. And it will trigger a little bit of motivation to actually get it done, right? So this client is very much a believer, as I am, in writing your prayers, your conversations with God, however you define God, the all that is, and divine and the universe, whatever. And writing those expressions of gratitude, writing your dream into being. And it's very, very powerful. And so she did this and she wrote about the house she wanted. She put it in her journal and she tucked it away. And 3 weeks later, that home she wrote about landed in their lap. They moved in a couple weeks ago. I mean, it really, sometimes it just happens really
It
quickly.
does
And
happen.
yeah, and she
Yeah.
wasn't like focusing on it every single day. She just
No.
wrote it in her journal and let it go because a lot of times that is really so important. Allowing it to happen, allowing something bigger than yourself. Remember, we talked about how it's not you.
Yeah.
It's not your ego personality that's creating anything. You have
Well, I
to
want to
open
just
up
comment on
to
this
that.
with you, because one of the things you're talking about is if you're me, you didn't even know it existed.
Yeah,
Right? But
right.
somehow you got so far ahead of the curve in incorporating this into a very, very successful practice. And the stories you're sharing are because you help these people get there. You know, I shared the story of how I got into the home I'm living in today. I mean, I found myself, I had lived in a place for 14 years. I had my new knee replacement, clearly didn't want to move. But the universe said, you can't have the rest of your dream if you still stay here.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. But what you just shared, it's not just a set point, it's a setup point. And
right.
what I mean for that is you're helping people set themselves up for that thing they really want, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we can't see the bigger picture, and that's why it's so important to let go of what it's going to look like because you just don't know why you're being hindsight. Oh my God, clarity
Yeah.
abound, right? You
Yeah.
can tell, 10 years down the road, you go, oh, that's why that happened. How perfect. How perfect. Everything was perfect.
Oh my gosh. Somebody said to me the other day, Janet, I think you'll appreciate this. Somebody from my old school, school I graduated, Claremont,
Mhm.
said to me, Pat, like, oh my gosh, you went to school for 10 years. I'm going to repeat the exact words. Went to school for 10, we're racked up $100,000 in student loans,
Yay.
right? You ready? What? So you could be Dr. Pat on a podcast? And I waited before I answered.
Oh,
Right? You know,
ow,
I know this person, so
ow.
I know what they were saying.
Yeah.
But I said, of course I did, because that was the bigger plan. It was
Yes.
never about going to school. It was
Yeah,
never about that.
that's
And then
right.
we had a great conversation, but it's to your point. There's something operating. Don't you find, though, we have to trust that? And sometimes that's hard.
Oh, yeah, it's totally hard. Yeah, right? Jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Yeah, it's surrender to that greater knowing because you don't know. You don't know. You think you know, you don't know. But the way you connect into that greater knowing is to connect into the feeling of what you want. Because guess what? Your higher self, God, the all that is, the universe wants that for you as well. Because
You
that's
know,
what you are.
when I lost my job in 1992, and it was hard. It was 6 months before a full pension, blah, blah, blah. I had
Mm-hmm.
one of the greatest therapists on the planet, Dr. Lovett, Dr. Juanita Lovett out of New Jersey. And man, I could never have recovered from that without her,
Yeah.
because in a sense she was doing what you were doing. However, she was a little bit firmer with me because I would say I'm a little bit to handle, right? But what she was saying, Pat, look, what have you failed at in your life? Has there been anything you failed at? And I knew the question because I knew she knew I didn't believe in the word fail, even though I really screwed up. But what we didn't get, and it took me a long time to get it, is what you're talking about, right? Now, the
Yeah.
good news is she continued to be my therapist when I moved here. But getting what you're saying is hard to get if you just think you're watching this and you're taking it in by yourself. I'm going to encourage all of you out there. These past 4 years, they've been door closing for some
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
but the door is not locked. And Janet, this is really where you are and what you do, counseling, coaching, beyond meditation, all of that helps people find the key and put the key in the keyhole and turn it. Those are the hardest parts of any journey. And I know I couldn't do it alone. And I know you have more stories to tell about people that you've helped.
I do, and we may not have time today, and that's okay. I encourage everyone, if you'd like to go to my website, for the TTR listeners, I am offering a giveaway of a 20-minute session. I would love to have a conversation with you if you'd like to manifest something that's, bigger than a parking spot. Right? I mean, we all have parking spot juju, right? But it's not about just manifesting, really. It's not about that. It's not about the stuff, the things. I really do believe that we're supposed to have joy. We're supposed to have love in our life, and we're supposed to have a happy, happy life, a happy incarnation where we're here for ourselves and for everyone else. But it's about getting you to a place where you connect into that part of you that is love, that is joy, that is creativity. And, you can't do that if you're looking outside of yourself all the time. It's really an inside job.
Janet, thank you so much for today. Again, how do people
You.
work with you? Can we give out your website, please, one more time?
Yes.
And
Oh,
then
yeah.
there is, I want to say to everybody, this is free 20-minute conversation with Janet. And in the world we live in today, there's very little that's free. But if you don't know how to start and you don't know what you don't know, like I didn't, or you don't even know what to ask, please, she's opening up her door. Um, please reach out and get some assistance. What is the best way for them to do that again, please?
Thank you. Yeah, it's at my website. It's janettherese.com. It's JANETTHERESE.com. And
And
everything is there. My YouTube channel, my Spotify. You can see past episodes if you'd like. It's all on my website.
and please don't forget to get the meditation, because the meditation is there too. That you just get that and you work with that and you take in what Janet has said today. Personal message. What would you like to leave us with, please?
Oh, gosh, connect inside, because that's where it all is. Just connect in, and I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you.
And remember what
Thank
we
you.
said today. This is about manifesting. It's about manifesting methods, but it's about sharing stories with you of people that have actually done this. And there are so many, many,
So
many
many.
more.
Mhm.
Janet, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all for tuning us in. I want to say this is one of these episodes you all have requested. And so please pay it forward, pass this on. It is really, as Dr. Darvish says in her book, and I take this very seriously, as women, our duty is immense. And that has raised the bar for me in a very short period of time. And Janet's already there. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. I'm Janet Therese, and you've been listening to Living the Paradox, One Within Oneness on Transformation Talk Radio. We've been exploring ways you can live the paradox of individual consciousness, living within oneness. Tune in every fourth Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time for more tools and exciting insights on how to connect with and trust your inner guidance and how your personal journey helps lift humanity. For more information, visit janettherese.com. That's Janet Therese, THERESE.com.